Coloring a large surface area like this is a good 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches. You're not going to get a color gradation from start to finish in one fuse. And it's just because the width, as you start to, this was fused for about 20 seconds. As you start to color, you are going to be spending out that clear toning medium. You're going to be going through the different tones within the pen and start to work to your darker tones. But it would have shorted out halfway through if I would have started at the top. So the way I do this a lot of times is I will either start from one side and then work my way down and then work the other side, or sometimes I'll use multiple colors in order to get a full light to dark color gradation. So I started with a BL6, which is a darker color, and now I'm using the BL3, the lighter blue that we've got. And these are the colors that are in our 22 set. We have more blues now, so you can get even closer colors. These are very far in the spectrum, from light to a very light BL3 to a BL6. But the way I'm using it, I can actually get them to blend pretty seamlessly with two extreme ends of the spectrum, because I'm going from a light to the darker of the BL3, but I'm coloring my way in towards an area that has a color gradation from light to dark. So I'm not having a stop hard line of working from that dark BL6 against the BL3. So as you see, what happens is I start to color into that transition. I'm now into actually overlaying the color. So I'm overlaying the BL3 over top of the BL6. So in effect, I'm getting a color gradation from light to dark blue in just using those two colors. And I get this nice sort of seamless blend. So you can leave it just as it is. It looks great. You could add more layers over top. This is still just a little bit damp. I actually colored on just a regular photocopy paper so you can see the other side. I just protect your surface. Once it's dry, it'll actually lighten back up and look a little bit smoother. But if you want to take it one step further, what you can do is you can work from side to side. So I worked from top to bottom, but here I fused the BL3, and I'm going to work from the center outward to get a little bit different shape and dimension. So I'm almost trying to get that spherical shape where I'm putting the highlight in the center and then working top to bottom and then side to side to really make that highlight pop. I always like to pay a little special attention to the outer edges. You can really get a nice little drop shadow, like underneath the bird's beak or underneath the chin of the bird, just by adding an extra layer of that exact color without even any additional fusing. Because remember, with alcohol inks, you can put layer upon layer of them, and they do get darker. So that's a really neat tool that you've got. You can go from using the colorless toning medium from an absence of color to color and that nice color gradation. And then you can keep going in that same area and get even more depth and dimension by layering the same color on top and, not using extra fusing. So you see how you can get that nice little drop shadow just by adding that one more layer. And it's kind of cool because it's all coming from one pen. You don't have to think about, geez, is this in the right color family? Do I need a different? It's all coming from the one pen. So now I have that kind of extra highlight included in there. Give it a little bit of a feather to dry and you're all set to go. Now here I really want to show you, you can use a Chameleon pen like an ordinary marker pen. Of course it can do so much more, and that's a beautiful part about Chameleon is you have these options. If I just want to use it like an ordinary alcohol marker pen, the color flows beautifully. It's really like almost like a very fine paintbrush using that Japanese super soft nib. And it's like you're massaging color onto the paper. You get a beautiful airbrushed finish, and it really can give some neat effects. But you can layer it color on color too. So just by using the natural properties of laying alcohol colors over top of alcohol colors, I can darken it even more. So this way I can get that highlighted effect. And I'm using, again, still one pen and just using it like an ordinary marker, and it really is a fantastic pen. Now the second little birdie I'm doing here, a slightly different method. It's a bit easier to get a longer blend because it's a little narrower area. So you can see as I'm starting to color, I'm actually hanging there for a second. I want to hang for a sec because it didn't transition quite as fast as I wanted it to, but the way you actually control that is just test it off to the side or just hang in that area for a bit and let the color start to reveal itself. That's usually the method I like to use. And you get this really cool seamless color gradation. As you see, it's starting to get darker and darker. So this was the BL3, this is the sky blue that I'm using. And as I'm coloring down, it's starting to come back to the true color of the BL3. So I'm giving it a good intensity at the bottom. So this is how I'm going to transition from absence of color to a mid-tone to a darker tone of the BL3. And now I'm going to put the BL6 right on top of it. But I fuse the BL6 for a good 20 seconds because it's a darker color. It takes more colorless toning medium to be able to get that into a lighter area. But this is dark. This is the BL6 and this is the BL3. So huge difference between the two, but we can actually get a pretty good color blend or gradation doing it this way. So I give it a good fuse. Again, you want to give a darker color maybe 20 seconds because it really has a lot more intensities and pigment. So it takes a little bit more of the colorless blending solution, the toning medium, the clear mixing solution to keep it light. Test it off to the side. Now, I don't press hard. I just do this really, really light touch, because then that way you kind of ease the color in. And it's that light touch that really makes a difference. It doesn't create the seam. It sort of feathers it on top. And then now as I start to color, you can see it's starting coming back to the color of the BL6, or traditional color. So I'm going from that absence of color at the top using a fused BL3, and then I'm going all the way down to the BL6 and the deeper end of the family. I even go back on top of it to get even more depth in areas like under the belly and under the wings. Now, if you find that there's a little bit of transition that's not quite the way you want it, go back over top with the BL3 and then just sort of work that seam out. It'll be a little bit wet, but once it dries, you'll find that it is completely seamless. So it'll dry and it'll look absolutely beautiful. Another really cool method is to add texture, and that's a great way to cover a large area using color gradations, but in a different way. Here what I've done is I've sort of fused the pen and I'm coloring from light to dark. So you work your way down, go from where you want it to be light to where you want to be dark, and just keep fusing, and then you're able to go and get some really neat effects. You want kind of a good variation. You want some light, some dark, and this is cool. This is all done with one BL6. So I'm using this one BL6 and I'm adjusting that color tone to go light in the center and then darker towards the areas I want it to be. And then just keep fusing it and mixing it and sort of building layers of texture one on top of one another. So the effect we really want to create here is, again, that sort of spherical effect. The center of the belly will be lighter and towards the outer edges is going to be darker. So you just keep working and building it. So the key to making it look really realistic is to build it in layers. So I did this light to dark sort of feathering in the bottom using the BL6, and now I'm going over top with the BL3. And I'm fusing the BL3 so that I can have a highlight in the center still. And then I'm actually putting two layers of BL3 on top of one another. So I'm building with depth and dimension from light and then that color gradation down to dark. Now, as you're building these layers, I'm going to go back in to add even more. And that's a nice part about using alcohol inks is you can keep building, and once it dries, just keep building layer upon layer upon layer. So I wanted to add a little bit more texture in here. So I'm adding a little bit more of the BL6, the darker one, And when I go off camera, you can see what I'm doing is actually just fusing the pen just to lighten it up a little bit so that I can sort of work from the center outward and keep the light tones of blue, the mid tones of blue, and the darker tones of blue all in the same color family, which is great because it's coming all from the same pen. Just bear in mind the shape of what you're looking to create. Here I'm kind of wanting to get more of the center to stay highlighted and work darker along the sides. So just speeding it up a little bit so you can see, I'm just working layer upon layer, getting depth and dimension, and going from the highlight, the light to the dark, so that it really looks like little tiny feathers. Going back over top one more time with the BL3, and it just sort of smooths everything over. It's not so piecey, as Kathy likes to say. There you go. So there's a couple of quick techniques showing you how you can do large surface areas using Chameleon pens.